How does an individual qualify for the Medicaid long-term care benefit? Hi, my name is Michael Rutkowski, owner of the Rutkowski Law Firm, asset protection, estate planning, and elder law attorney. So let's talk about Medicaid long-term care. Now there's two types of Medicaid. There's Medicaid health insurance for any age individual if they qualify under an asset and income test. That's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about the Medicaid long-term care benefit. This kicks in when an individual needs long-term care, meaning in skilled facility care. Think of it as 24/7 around the clock care. That's when there's an available governmental benefit, Medicaid, that is available to these individuals. Now, it's a three-pronged test in our world to get an individual qualified for the Medicaid long-term care benefit. So the three things that we're going to be looking at is first, physical disability. Is the individual disabled to the point where they qualify for the care? Second, we look at income. Is the income in line with what Medicaid allows for qualification for this benefit? And third, and where an elder law attorney can provide the most value, is assets. Are our assets under their allowable amount? And we'll dive a lot into that today. So let's first talk about physical disability. So there's a bunch of ways an individual can check the box on being physically disabled enough to qualify for the benefit. The first way we look at is something called, usually it's under what's called the 7 doors of Medicaid. The first door is using activities of daily living. So if an individual struggles with a certain amount of activities of daily living, this is feeding themselves, using the restroom, getting around the home, those kinds of things, then the individual would be physically disabled enough to qualify for the benefit. The second door of Medicaid is through a diagnosis of cognitive impairment. So if an individual is diagnosed Alzheimer's, dementia, some type of cognitive impairment, they are also going to be able to check the box without looking at the activities of daily living. It's essentially a trump card for this individual to then qualify from a physical disability standpoint. I would say over 90% of individuals qualify under those two steps. I'll do another video one day, the 7 doors of Medicaid and all the ways an individual can qualify. So next, let's move to income. I know I mentioned assets next, but let's move to income because that's a fairly easy thing to go through. Remember, this is a federal and state funded program. Every state is just a little bit different on how they handle income. In the state of Michigan, we have an unlimited income standard. So what that means is as long as someone's care costs more, $1 more than their income, Medicaid will cover the difference. Because remember, the institutionalized individual spouse, their income first goes towards their care, then Medicaid's always going to cover the difference. So in Michigan, we don't have as many income problems. Other states have income caps. For example, let's say a state has a $5,000 income cap. What that means is if that institutionalized individual has an income of more than $5,000, they will not qualify for the Medicaid long-term care benefit. It doesn't matter if their cost of care is $10,000 a month, $15,000 a month. They're not going to qualify for this benefit. So talk to a lawyer in your state as to income restrictions so that you can understand what needs to happen. Some states have ways to reduce a person's income to get them qualified. Where we can provide the most value as elder law attorneys is in the assets. How much assets is an individual able to have in order to qualify? The general rule of thumb here is there's two standards, a married couple and a single individual. For a married couple, you're allowed to have one house, one car, and approximately $130,000 in assets. I want to say approximately only because year after year it changes based on inflation, but it's right around that number. So one house, one car, $130,000 in assets. Now there's limits to how much is your house able to be worth? How much is your car able to be worth? And it's a very generous amount. For a house, it's around $600,000. For a car, it's around $60,000. Again, these are always ever-changing numbers, but it's around that just for general discussion here today. The next thing that we need to look at is for a single individual. So it's one house, one car, and $2,000 in assets, again, adjusted with inflation. So it dramatically drops when we're talking about a single individual versus a married couple. So let's talk about some of the families that we've helped and how this can work. A lot of times families will come to us with more than, let's say, a married couple. And my example is going to be a married couple that we did help. They came to us with $500,000 investment in retirement accounts, cash assets, in total $500,000. They had one house, one car. Both the house and the car were under the allowable amount, so there was no problem there. Those are going to be exempt assets for Medicaid's qualification. But what we need to help with is how do we get that $500,000 reduced to under $130,000 so that when we go to apply, they qualify. Now, in this case, the family needed nursing home care almost immediately. So we had to do what's called Medicaid crisis planning. And when we have a Medicaid crisis case, we use things like Medicaid compliant annuities to shelter that excess in funds. So that extra $370,000, we were able to use a Medicaid compliant annuity, pay it as income to the healthy spouse, and protect and preserve all of that money for the family so that they can use it for what they need it for extra medical care, whatever the case may be. Those are options when we don't have what's called the 5-year look back. When we don't have the time of working through the 5-year look back, we have to use different, more aggressive strategies to protect and preserve assets. This was a great case because we were able to hold on to so much money for the family. And there's other options too. You don't have to do what's called a Medicaid spend down. You don't have to just spend all your money until it's under that $130,000 before you qualify. There are other options to hold on to that money. Let's talk about that 5-year look back for a minute. So we went through assets, we went through income, we went through disability. Now let's talk about something called the 5-year look back. What that means is at the time of application, Medicaid's going to want your financial statements for 5 years prior to the application date. And what they're looking for is, was there a gift of assets? Maybe something that Medicaid looks at and says, you shouldn't have spent your money there. You should have spent it on your care now going forward. If they find something that they don't approve of, let's say you paid off one of your kids' college debt, or you loaned a child some money. These are things that we see happen all the time. They will issue you what's called a divestment penalty. And that is just a period of time in which they say, Medicaid says, you qualify on paper for this benefit, but we're not going to pay for your care because we don't like what you did in the last 5 years. So we were working through families to fix things that happened in the last 5 years to also get them qualified. So just know there's lots of options. Again, the most important things we're looking at is disability of the individual, assets, and income. And where we as elder law attorneys can provide the most value is in the asset piece of this developing the strategy so that you, the family, can hold on to as much of your assets as possible and still have Medicaid pay for your long-term care. Again, my name is Mike Rutkowski, estate planning, asset protection, and elder law attorney at the Rutkowski Law Firm. If you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm going to be delivering this kind of content going forward. It's going to be good. If you have questions, throw them in the comments below, and I'd be happy to tackle other issues like this. Feel free to call our office as well, 248-792-9193, or go on our website, rutkowskilawfirm.com.